Good evening, everybody. It's that time again. Welcome to the Bird and Goal podcast. Bird and Goal from what is it now? Because it all seems the same to me.
It
Was
should be week 10. Oh, episode 10, week 11.
okay. Bird and Goal from 11, week 11. I am your host, Jackie. I am joined by my lovely co host. Say hello to the folks.
What is up, everybody? I'm Colby, and another fun Cardinal game to talk about.
Yes, Lorenzo, how you doing, buddy? He says, Jackie, talk to me. What insights, comments, and thoughts do you have for us tonight? Um, this is going to be a very open-ended conversation, so feel free to keep commenting. I will read them off because I am at a loss for words from this team, which is to be expected after last week's performance. It's just the gift that keeps on giving of this dumpster fire of a season. Um, it's just a shame, really. You come into the season, you think you're gonna at least split with the division, make a run at possibly winning the division because you kind of were in position last year, and it's all gone to hell. Um, we're lucky. I think I mentioned this at the beginning of the year. We don't do this podcast at the beginning of the week because it gives me time to calm down. I had some thoughts. I think about this team way too much in an unhealthy sense, and I probably shouldn't. But I have trouble sleeping, so I went. We were at the game Sunday. Of course, we lose. Come home. Go to bed. I woke up in the middle of the night, and the first thing that popped into my head at 2 or whatever it is in the morning is, you know what? I don't even care about 47 completions and it being like some type of record. It doesn't matter when we lose. So I've been kind of on the pessimistic train as of late. But I'm gonna try not to do that this episode. But what are your thoughts, Colby?
Yeah, it was another disappointing game, and you sound like Jacoby Brissett there saying the 47 NFL record completions doesn't really matter. You don't care because the team lost. Another hole early. It feels like the game just got started and then you were down 2 scores already. So another week of that. And this team's not built to come back into games. They are not a go right down the field and a touchdown in a couple of minutes and suddenly you're right back into it. It's a slow game plan. It's a team that wants to establish the run and use the play action and kind of keep the ball out of your hands and then kind of suffocate you with the defense. So when they get hit in the mouth like they have the last 2 weeks, they don't have a way to get back into the game. It's an uphill battle.
Yeah, it does not help back to back weeks when you go immediately down in the first minute. In this case, it was seconds of the game, 99-yard kick return for a touchdown, immediately go down 7-0. And you kind of were in striking distance for a little bit. There was definitely some plays to be had. And I feel like we come up with some creative ways to take us out of games. And the theme of this week's was 17-1 penalties, a franchise record, for a total of 130 yards. So you've shot yourself in the foot for 130 yards, just to kind of take yourself out of it. And yeah, like you said, we're just not built to get back into it, which I think it's becoming more and more obvious that this is a dysfunctional coaching regime.
I don't think. We've already kind of come to the agreement, even though begrudgingly. But this team isn't going to make any coaching changes. They're not going to make any front office changes. They're just going to kind of stand pat and take their lumps and see what the rest of the season looks like.
Yeah, when you look at it from a logistical standpoint, as well as kind of our history with owner Michael Bidwell, I don't think he's going to be keen to paying out another coach contract when we are still paying Cliff Kingsbury. It's just, I talked about it last week. It just feels like there's a lot of lack of direction and a lot of question marks that you kind of don't know where we're going to go from here. the direction that we've been kind of like aware of is that Kyler's probably not going to be here next year. Although I do see a slim world where he is, just based off of if we can move off of that contract, because ideally you would like to trade him versus just flat out cut him.
Right.
But at this point, I don't want to harp on the Kyler versus Jacoby too much, because at the end of the day, Kyler is on IR, and you're gonna get a couple more weeks of Jacoby no matter what, unless he completely either gets injured or completely falls off a cliff, and at that point, you're seeing was it Slovis?
Yeah.
I forget his first name.
Yeah. You'll get to see Keldon Slovis.
Oh, real quick, Lorenzo, that's how I feel as well. I was hoping for a 10+ win season. Look at my dreams. Yeah, Lorenzo, I pegged us for at least like 11 or 12 wins. I was feeling very confident, especially given the strength of schedule. Your first half of the year is what should have been a cakewalk. Could have at least, you know, through those first 7 games, you were very close to almost being 7-0, but here, alas, here we are, 3-win up until this point. Shout out Grandizer for promoting us in our individual socials in the chat. We appreciate you being here. Hello, hello for our friend, our Seattle fan, Ayana. Thank you for not showboating. And then Lorenzo says, so McBride wiping his nose. I didn't get it till someone mentioned it was to do with a gang reference, basically a teardrop tattoo.
It's
My understanding of it, I think it's a drug reference, as like,
yeah, it's a little
I know it's the PG channel, so I don't want to, get us flagged for anything, but for my understanding, it's a drug reference. I thought the flag was stupid. I think, initially what I thought from what, I seen in the stands, granted this is happening on the way opposite side of the field, on the opposite sideline from where we sit. I thought he was doing like the cutthroat sort of thing, but then they replayed it. But the rules is the rules. It has been a banned thing. I know CeeDee Lamb got nabbed with it.
yeah, it's a
But
new rule. It just happened with CeeDee Lamb a couple weeks ago.
yeah.
But the NFL doesn't want any references to the throat slashing or to illegal substances, so that's why he got the flag.
Yeah. So, and then just, silly things that, like, love Trey McBride. I love the energy he brings. But, I get that you're emotional and you're hyped up. But I think there was a little bit of a back and forth between him and the defender on the previous play. So, you got to try to keep a cool head there. That one single thing didn't cost us the game, but, you don't want to do anything that could potentially jeopardize the game, a la, like the Amari DiMercato dropping the ball type situation. So as a leader, you got to be a little better than that. But again, I don't agree with the penalty. I think it's stupid, but I didn't make the rules. What you clicking on over there?
Oh, I was just looking at some defensive stats.
Okay. But yes, another 22-41. So back-to-back weeks of giving up plus 40 points. We did come away with the same amount of points as we did against Seattle, total of 22. Of course, you're trying to fight and claw your way back in garbage time. But like I mentioned earlier, Jacoby Brissett with a record-setting 47 out of 47 completions for 57 attempts. Nothing to sneeze at, but it's also a testament to the lack of run game. And when you are forced to throw the ball that many times, defenses are going to prepare. So, fortunately, you're going on a very one-dimensional game plan there. I did appreciate, because if you go back, I was looking back at the highlights of every completion, and there was a couple nice deep pass attempts. Some great plays by Michael Wilson, Trey McBride. But I do appreciate the check downs. I feel like that kind of negated some of the, he he didn't get sacked this game, and I feel like the past few weeks that I've been watching Jacoby, it's like, he's getting sacked. I'm like, I wish, try to take a check down where you can. So I do appreciate that, there are some check downs. You're moving the ball, you're converting on third down, but unfortunately, it's just not enough to win you the game.
Right. Yeah. No. The last 2 weeks, Jacoby's been sacked 10 times. 5 against Seattle, 5 against the Dallas Cowboys. So to keep him upright, especially with 57 pass attempts, that's 57 chances. The San Fran had to take Jacoby down. So the offensive line has not played good this year, and Jacoby's had to come in now. Though we were on week 5 of playing with Jacoby at quarterback. So good for him. It's nice to see him not get sacked. He's a little bit bigger body, so he does get hit. He's not back there in a clean pocket every time. So, hopefully we can build on that. Jacksonville is not a team that gets a lot of sacks. They're 30th in the NFL in sacks. They only have 13 on the season. So, and I think their big pass rusher, their Trayvon Walker, he didn't practice today. That's something to look forward to. Maybe another chance that, Jacoby gets another clean day where he's not on the ground.
Yeah, that could potentially be huge. This is a game that I would consider in any other scenario except now and get right game, but unfortunately, there's nothing to necessarily get right at this point. It's just more of a don't embarrass yourself any more than you already have. Try to escape without getting injured, and if you win, you win. At this point, we're kind of looking at draft position versus, trying to up our win total of the season. Some big names that aren't going to be that we were kind of looking forward to at the beginning of the year was Travis Hunter, kind of seeing what he looks like at the NFL level in person. Unfortunately, will not be playing. And then on our side of the ball, it has already been confirmed that Marvin Harrison Jr. will be out. He's still recovering from the appendectomy, which, it's unfortunate that happened to him, but also at the same time, it's not like anything that's going to linger and affect his career long term. It's not like a knee injury or a lingering shoulders, stuff like that.
Right.
So, I guess that's a positive. Unfortunately, no Amari DiMercato. It's been rumored that it's going to be a high ankle, so don't know what his long-term status will be yet. But good news is that you won't see him Sunday, but Trey Benson's practice window has been open, so we might get to see some improvement in the run game to close out the year. But it's hard to talk about this team at this late in the game when there's not a lot of wins and there's not a lot of positives. But I will say that Michael Wilson is really emerging to be a true number 2. How do you feel about that? Because I know you had some major doubts about that going into the season, whether he could be a number 2.
Yeah, no, and a lot of people talked about why they didn't go get a running back in the offseason, or a wide receiver in the offseason as like a number 2 guy. And, it was a lot of telling, people on Twitter and in our group chats, like they believe in Michael Wilson. They think Michael Wilson's a number 2. Whether we've seen it up until last week, none of us really have seen it. But inside, the facility, the Cardinals management, the coaching staff, Monty Ossenfort, they all believe Michael Wilson is a number 2 wide receiver next to Marvin Harrison Jr. So, they kind of got their, they could go cash their receipts because Michael Wilson played great. And he showed you that, like, hey, I don't get a lot of opportunity in this offense. In his whole career, he hasn't gotten a lot of opportunity. But to get that shot with, no one in the wide receiver room healthy but you and I and Michael Wilson, someone had to get all the targets, and I'm glad they went to him and not me and you. He's good. He's a number 2 wide receiver. And in this offense with Trey McBride and Marvin Harrison, like, you have a number 2 wide receiver as your third option in the passing game. So I think we're okay. I think I still think they need to go get a guy in the offseason. They're not going to spend a first-round pick on him. Probably not going to spend a second-round pick on him, but could definitely go get a guy in that second wave of free agency next season to come in and kind of replace the Zay Jones role as that 4th wide receiver, 4th option in the offense. That's what I believe.
Yeah, and that would be a good opportunity to look to somebody, um, that has a little bit of speed that can take the top off of a defense. I think that would complement the skill set that we see out of Marvin Harrison and Michael Wilson, because Michael Wilson is kind of what you want Marvin Harrison to be right now. Big body wide receiver, is he's coming down with contested catches, with his hands, no body catches. And we joke all the time that like every week Michael Wilson has like a make a normal catch impossible challenge going with himself, where he just comes up with these crazy catches, very like all a AJ prime AJ Green esque. So I like what I'm seeing out of him. I'm glad he's getting the recognition and the love that he deserves. He's a high character guy. Somebody you want to root for. Um, he's had a little bit of injury history, but it's just nice to see somebody shining in this dumpster fire of a season.
Right.
We're kind of hoping that would have been Marv, which jury's not out on Marv yet. I want to see more consistency out of him. Just unfortunate that it was just a freak, burst appendix that has sidelined him for the last couple weeks. But with Jacoby being the passer that he is, maybe when he does come back, that he can get some opportunities and kind of be inspired by what Michael Wilson's doing. Lorenzo says, I wish we could lose Drew right now and get an interim offensive coordinator. That way we can see what kind of QB we need to help run the offense. What do you make of that?
I think we know exactly what kind of quarterback they want to run Drew Pensing's offense. That question has kind of been answered the last month or so.
Which is stand in the pocket.
A big pocket passer that can run if needed. No more 6 foot quarterbacks. That's not going to be what Drew Pensing wants in this offense.
Yeah, if you can get a little more mobility out of a quarterback than what Jacoby has now, would be pretty solid. Or I don't think they're going to blow it up with the coaching staff, but if you do get a different coaching staff, what would be the kind of offensive style you'd like to see? Would you want to keep it that way, or would you want somebody a little more creative in the pass game?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still in the camp of I don't believe they're going to fire Drew as much as we all want them to fire him, and I think it's deserved to be a pretty hot seat. I just don't see that move coming from JG and Monty Ossenfort. That being said, I don't think they're going to go and they've spent the picks on Tip Ryman and Trey McBride and Trey Benson and the offensive linemen. We haven't got to see Connor Haynes yet, but these are all guys that they've kind of built they've got the scheme and they're putting players in the scheme. So now I think they're going to look to put the quarterback that they want, the type of quarterback that they want, into the scheme. And then if it fails, then I think you'll see them move on and blow it up offensively.
Grandizer, thank you for being here. We continued your trend of stock up, stock down. So from because for me, I'm still watching these games, not only because this is what I do as my hobby. I talk about them every week. So of course I have to come up here every Wednesday and chat with you lovely folks and, have something to say. But if I didn't have this kind of obligation, I would still watch this team because I do like to watch individual players emerge, or just have, a good individual game, has put up some good stats, or just kind of see the hope, especially out of these rookies. I have been a believer of the Monty Ossenfort draft strategy. I like what he's done with our rookies. There is a couple of possible whiffs. Jury's still out on a couple people, but stock up, stock down. We'll get to those, but stock up, stock down players that you had this game.
Well, the easy one is Michael Wilson. Yeah. That's the easy answer. After that, I believe Cody Simon had a huge day. The rookie had to step in for Mac Wilson. He did get burned on the one Christian McCaffrey touchdown where there was some confusion on assignments in the in the zone concept that they were running, and he kind of got lost and left Christian McCaffrey out in no man's land for an easy touchdown. But other than that, 12 tackles, he led the team. Christian McCaffrey still only had about 80 yards rushing, so he didn't come in and put up 150 on you or something crazy. And then I would also say, I would say a little bit of a stock up in Jacoby. We no sacks, a couple of turnovers, but there looked like there was a little bit of gray area on the one interception with the two wide receivers in the same area. The route looked awful. One of them, it looked like a post, and then like a 10-yard or 12-yard in, and the wide receiver on the in route on the outside pushed it a little bit too far, and then the post next to it is too close to the sideline, so they both end up in about the same spot. And it's instead of kind of having a bigger gap, so the defender has to make a choice. Instead, you put two defenders and you threw the ball right to one of them. And so I would say a little stock up there, because 47 completions and no sacks is still pretty cool.
I'll give you a stock up, which is probably my favorite play of the game, even though there wasn't a whole lot to write home about. Keaton Crawford, very athletic play there to jump up like that and block that field goal. And it's a very sample size. We haven't seen a whole lot of him in action, but I'm just curious to see what he can really do with more snaps. Just given that the future of the safety room is kind of in the air.
Yeah.
Buda Baker is looking a little more human these days, getting up there in age. He's 30 years old. So that's kind of where you see the drop off in play at that position, or just once you turn 30 in the NFL, you were considered geriatric. Some players do that more than others. And then Jalen Thompson has been a little streaky for these past couple seasons, so we don't know what's going to happen in regards to their future. I think Rabbit's pretty safe, but Keaton Crawford is an interesting player that I look forward to seeing what he can do in the future. And then I will second your Cody Simon. I know on that play you were talking about where he kind of whiffed. It give him some grace. He is a rookie wearing the green dot. But I was looking at that play, and they bid on like emotion, kind of gave up what the defensive look was going to be.
It looked to be a rub route there on the play there, with Kittle running the post on the inside of it, and just the mix up of the linebacker and the corner and the flat, and the corner taking George Kittle, and we just took 1 second too long, and then Christian McCaffrey's all by himself in the flat.
Yeah. But he was all, I didn't even have to look it up, but I could already tell that he was leading the team in tackles this week. Because just, he was all over the place, We did see BJ Ojolari on some limited snaps, but,
yes.
He is proven to be real. I wouldn't say stock up. It's stock we got to see. So looking forward to seeing what he can do against this Jaguars team that's, not the greatest offense. So that'll be some nice, might be some nice softballs for him to get active, get his name on the stat sheet. I did hear his name called once. So, it is proof that he is in fact not a myth. Of course, stock up Josh Sweat, the greatest free agent signing of Monty Ossenfort's career.
Yes.
Continues to be consistent. Did come away with the one and only sack this last week. In a very, what you thought was going to be a better pass rush unit, that is our one shining spot. Unfortunately, Baron Browning did not play, and he's been banged up. He had a very hot start to the season, and he's kind of been cold thus far, so we'll see. Big man Calais too, getting after it. Of course, he's old, and he's just there to help the development of Walter Nolan, who, had some pressures as well, and looking forward to seeing what he can do. So I'm stock still up on Walt. Other than that, though, everybody's just been kind of hot and cold. The corner room has been hot and cold, but to give the guys grace, it's like they're not all healthy all the time, and you got to have your rookies and your third and fourth stringers come in and try to make things happen. Denzel Burke has been playing okay, more good moments than not. Max Melton's been kind of hot and cold. Garrett Williams, more hot than he is cold, but it's hardest position in my opinion to play in the NFL. Um, just kind of going through all the position groups here, but yeah, it unfortunately you did give up another 40-point game, so that's that. Grandizer did have another tidbit here. According to Tankathon, the 3-7 Cardinals currently hold the 10th overall pick in the first round of the 2026 draft. What are you thinking? We're taking the best guard available?
We're taking the best offensive lineman on the board. Come on down.
So what? Or I'm sorry, I guess I said left guard. I meant right guard or right tackle.
Yep. The best offensive lineman that's there, you are a Cardinal. Congratulations.
And then Grandizer said, in my honest opinion, the team at the Cardinal rule, all of you take notes and also point out things that we may have missed that the media does not cover. Good nuggets and gems. Well, thank you. I used to take notes when I was happy and hopeful. Now this is all just stuff off the top of my dome. But I did I did find a little tidbit. Let me pull this up on my phone real quick. I apologize for looking down. Trey McBride is the second in missed tackles force, 12 at the tight end position. Who do you think is right behind him at third? If you had to guess.
For forced missed tackles? Yes. For tight ends?
Yes. And this is all time. Or I guess in the Super Bowl era, wherever this metric is coming from.
Oh, is it a single game?
No, this is like all time.
I don't know then.
Just take a guess. Just pick a tight end.
Just pick a tight end, Max Williams?
No. Elijah Higgins.
Elijah Higgins? Wow.
10 forced missed tackles. In just 16 receptions. So, fun fact. There you go. Which unfortunately, Mr. Higgins was in attendance of the salute to service game. He did get to do the ringing of the air raid siren, and then Elijah did have that fumble at the goal line.
Yeah, the fumble at the goal line hurt.
Yeah, and if you look at the stats of like the 47 completions, the total offense, all the crazy numbers that we put up this game, you think, how do we lose? There you go. 2 interceptions, 1 fumble, whiff on special teams. We did cut Pat O'Donnell, which I feel like was a long time coming because he has not been very good. There was a couple punts on Sundays that went straight into the air. So he has been cut. We were working out somebody today, so I don't know who's going to be our punter going into Sunday. But yeah, special teams has just kind of been a blunder.
Yeah, the special teams unit this year has had its misses for sure, which is definitely concerning because Jeff Rodgers was the one holdover from the last coaching regime. So it's definitely upsetting because Jeff Rodgers was kind of like the one good spot that we had as having one of these top special teams units in like the whole NFL. I don't know how much longer he has, or if they do make a coaching change. I think he'll be also out of here as well. But with Blake Gillikin on IR, you bring in Pat O'Donnell, and like you said, the noticeable difference in the effectiveness of the punting. They did sign Matt Hack, who was here for a hot second a year or so ago.
Yes, I know he was here at some point.
Way back in 2023, he was here for 3 months.
Yeah. So yeah, like you said, I was going to say the same thing. Jeff Rodgers has been a very consistent good to this team. And yeah, special teams has just not played well. And I guess you could chalk some of that up to injuries, um, with Blake Gilligan not being in the rotation or in the mix anymore. Longtime special teamer Joey Blunt has been hurt. Simi Fehoko is hurt. So guys like that have been known to make plays on special teams are down for the year. Unfortunately, when you are down, you're not kicking them any field goals, so can't blame Chad Ryland for anything. So that's a stock up, I guess. We love it now.
Let me see. They did open Trey Benson's practice window today.
Yes. Yep.
So we might, day to day, I think is what JG said. I'm guessing probably next week, not this week, for Trey Benson, which means with no Amari, it'll be the Bam Night show. And unfortunately, Michael Carter somehow is still on my football team.
For those of you that don't know, we are Michael Carter's biggest haters. If Michael Carter has no more haters, that means we're dead. There you go. Grandizer said, Gannon-o-meter, coach's o-meter, stock up, stock down. All the way down the toilet, all the way down the dumps. But I'm not the GM, I'm not the owner, so I don't get to make those big brain decisions for our front office. And I don't even know where we go. Ideally, if you're going to make a change at quarterback and draft a guy, you would want to get an offensive-minded head coach in here. But who knows? I don't know if that's necessarily what we're going to do, if we're just going to run it back with Jacoby as a bridge until you beef up that offensive line via draft and free agency. So, yeah, it's just we're just kind of in a weird spot. And, we are no strangers of being in weird spots because there's been so many years in the Steve Keim era where, you're not necessarily rebuilding. You're just kind of
treading water.
Territory.
Yeah.
Okay, we got this great guy that, everybody loves that is way too old and we're giving way too much money, but, at least he gets somewhere to retire.
Yeah, I think what the Cardinals are going to have to do is, I believe it was Chase Daniels on ESPN was talking about it. And, these teams that are bad stay bad. Also because you have so much constant turnaround. You fire a coach 2 years in, you fire a coach 3 years in. So, I believe it was Chase Daniels. I'd have to double check. But, he was saying yesterday or today, like, just stick with it. Give JG one more year. Let him keep the culture. The guys haven't quit on him yet. It doesn't look like the team has mailed it in. They're still playing hard. They suck, but they're not rolling over. So, feel it out, see it all the way through. Maybe move off Kyler and one more year and see what it looks like. And if it starts looking better, then, maybe you get out of this forever suck spiral of bring in a new guy. By year 2, everyone's upset and wants to move on. And by year 3, you have a new guy in here and it's the same constant insanity is defined as doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. So maybe we just, everyone thought it was a 3-year rebuild and you're in year 3 and everyone was like, oh, look at how the schedule broke. You got 2 easy divisions that turned out to not be. They're on like their own insanity run this season for both of the 2 divisions we get in the rotation. So, maybe we step back and be like, well, yeah, but some injuries threw you off track, and the injury to Kyler and, the non-gelling of the offense with Kyler and Drew. And, we'll push it one more year and see what it looks like at the end of year 4. And then, it gets really hot, or, then finally you make the change at head coach or at coordinator and see what it looks like after that into 27.
Do you have I'm just going to entertain the thought more of a future head coach. Is there any like wish list items or things you look forward like in the next head coach that you would like to see?
Usually, you see teams bounce between a defense to an offensive guy, so likely would be an offensive guy. It also helps too if you have a hot shot young offensive coordinator. he can't get poached if he's your head coach. So, if you go that route, which is what they tried to do with Cliff Kingsbury, and kind of hand tie him to an older, experienced defensive coordinator to kind of help ride the ship, they could try that route again. I know Mike Kafka in New York, who is the interim head coach now for Brian Dable after he got fired. That's a guy that was kind of like the next name in the Kevin O'Connells and the Kellen Moores, as far as offensive minds that are going to be the next round of interviews that are going to get a lot of teams are going to be asking to talk to Mike Kafka.
That's an interesting one. I have like a very unrealistic wish list for my ideal head coach, because I don't really know anybody's like coordinators this well to know what they're like as a guy. But my ideal head coach, offensive mind first and foremost. But I'm tired of these hot shot young head coaches. Give me somebody that looks like they would just came off a construction site. Give me your next Dan Campbell, your next Mike Vrabel, just a blue collar man that happens to be an NFL head coach. Because we've had our most success with Bruce Arians, who was that kind of fits that mold. I don't really recall too much of what Ken Wisenhunt was like as a head coach, but I specifically remember what Todd Haley was like. And it didn't matter that Larry Fitzgerald was, already playing at a future Hall of Fame level during his time that Todd Haley was here, but he wasn't afraid to call Fitz a one-trick pony just to kind of, rile him up to get him to the next level of play. So I just want a hard-nosed head coach that, isn't necessarily a douchebag, but, can coach the guys hard and kind of get us back on track of where we need to be, and, makes players accountable. And just to kind of hype the guys up when we need it. So that's my unrealistic head coach. I just came off a construction site. Says I can definitely reach. You're funny, whoever you are. Malcolm Concy says, I think we can still win some games yet. Listen, I think there's a pretty good opportunity that we could win here against the Jags this weekend. There's also a very good opportunity that they could spank us, because they did spank the Chargers.
This is a Jacksonville team that is, the 7 seed right now. They are the last team in the playoffs in the AFC. They are a game ahead of all of the Houston Texans, the Kansas City Chiefs, and the Baltimore Ravens. So I don't think you're going to get a team that is like past Jags teams since their franchise inception. This is a team that needs to keep winning football games. So they're looking at their schedule saying, oh, we've got a nice easy one here. So maybe they can catch them. But this, the script has flipped now. At the beginning of the year, we're looking at this game like, oh, what a break. After San Fran and in Seattle, you get the Jags. That's an easy win. And now you look at it, and now they're looking at the schedule saying, oh, that's an easy win. It's the Cardinals. We just had a tough game against the Chargers and the Texans, and now we get the Cardinals and Titans before we have to go play the Colts. Like, these are easy wins for the Jags to stack right now if they want to get into the playoffs with their first-year head coach, too.
Yes, their first-year head coach, Duval. And then their 21-year-old frat boy GM. They're such an interesting team to me. Like, I don't want to write them off. And, I have no reason to write them off right now based on everything you just said. But they've also kind of been in purgatory themselves for a while.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, I don't know, the purgatory off, I guess you could call this. The Purgatory Bowl. Accelerator says, sup guys, Brimby, of course we do. We don't get a lot of Raiders fans in the chat other than you and then my cousin Tina. Shout out Tina if you're listening. But Grandizer laid out the schedule here so that we can just kind of go through and see what our odds are of winning these next few games. course, we have the Jags Sunday. We have Tampa Bay after that. I was gonna say like, oh, we've never lost to, in the Kyler Murray era has never lost to Baker Mayfield. Kyler Murray's not even gonna play, so that doesn't matter anymore. They're a fun, frisky team that I find myself low key rooting for here in the NFC. We've got the Rams, who are looking to be the best team in the NFC. Twice, we have not played them yet, so we get them twice. I don't think we're going to fare well against them. Sean McVay just has our number and will continue to have our number until he retires, unfortunately. We've got Houston, who's been hot and cold, but they did what was it, the Will Anderson strip sack to end the game. Was it that last week or the week before?
Week before.
Yeah. I can't wait to talk about that one because in terms of like the Paris Johnson, Will Anderson, draft year trade, we'll get him like when we play the Texans. We'll get more into that because we have a lot of opinions that we talk about all the time about that trade. We have the Falcons, who are going to be without Michael Penix, so that will be the Kirk Cousins show. That one we might be able to win depending on how healthy we are coming into that game. Cincinnati is intriguing because
Joe Burrow would be back by then.
You get Joe Burrow back. Granted, fingers crossed because I'm a Joe Burrow stan. He doesn't get hurt again. You will get Joe Burrow back. Not a very good offensive line. And they have a terrible defense. So that has the potential of being a shootout. We'll see. Their season's also lost as well, so they don't have playoff implications. And then you get the Rams to end the season. They'll probably have a high seed locked up for the playoffs, so who knows, they might be resting some people, but again, that doesn't matter.
So you got 7 games left. What do you feel?
I feel like we just win 2 more.
I was going to say, yeah, I think if they go 3 and 4, I think everybody's ecstatic.
At Jackie's Frog says I'm more entertaining than the Cardinals right now, and I would agree. I'm glad somebody finally noticed the frog. My kid made it at Build-A-Bear, and with no influence at all, picked this Cardinals jersey for him. I forget what she named him, but she named him something. But it's actually funny that she did pick a Cardinals jersey for him because if you ask her who her favorite football team is, she's 3 years old, but she will tell you that her favorite football team is the Buffalo Bills. So I know Lorenzo had commented back up here saying that we should just trade for Josh Allen. I don't know what a Josh Allen trade package would include, but it'd probably be every asset that this team has.
That and the Grand Canyon if Buffalo doesn't just hang up on you.
It would be that and maybe like our weather. I'm sure people of Buffalo would much prefer this heat versus the extreme blizzardy cold.
Right. Well, this is a team that's going to let us pass the ball. So, you're going to expect to see a lot of Jacoby Brissett passing attempts again this week. They're second in the league in interceptions, though. So while they don't get to the quarterback or take down the quarterback, their run defense is really good, something we're not good at. But they get turnovers.
Joe Burrow commented, "This is a dream come true." He says, "I'm actually a Jackie Santiago stan too." Thank you, Joe. I'll forgive you for getting my last name wrong, but you got me blushing over here. Accelerator says that's the Cards are my NFC team. On the flip side, for me, I have AFC team that is the Bengals. So that's either way for me. When we do play the Bengals, that'll be a win-win for me. Grandizer says, run the table, flip the script, play the spoiler, player development, give the fans something to believe in, go down fighting. At this point, I did see a weird graphic that, we're technically still in the hunt, like mathematically, but that's like if a lot of things go wrong for a lot of teams. But it would be nice to play spoiler to somebody, whoever that may be. But that's really all we're kind of looking forward to at this point is just to kind of see player development, who's worth keeping around and possibly giving a long-term contract to, and draft position, see, the best offensive lineman we can take. And, what do we want to do? Do we want to build up that side of the ball and then run it back with Jacoby? Because he's still under contract for next year. Don't know if we're going to take a project quarterback in this draft or just wait for Arch Manning. He hates that idea, by the way. You would crash out if we drafted Arch, huh?
Me? No.
You wouldn't?
No.
Okay. Noted.
I don't think his father will let him come here to Arizona.
No, we got...
Not his father, sorry. His grandfather.
Yeah. It's a pipe dream, but we'll see. Anything can happen. Just like any given Sunday, we might win more than 2 games to close out the year.
Yeah, what if we shock the world like Grandiose says? What if we go 5-2 the rest of the way?
Your buddy Jay says, Spencer Rattler, come on down, bring him home. No, thank you. The pride of Pinnacle High School can stay where he's at in the big league. But other than that, I have nothing else to say.
We move on to our predictions.
Yes, it's time to move on to our predictions. We will be in attendance for this game on Sunday. If you are going to the game, look for us in section 111 and buy me a beer. Choosers, beer of choice. I don't care. I'm gonna need it to watch this game. Who knows? It could be a fun one. I feel like it's out of the last few games that we played, we're a little more evenly matched. But I will end on a note of optimism and say that we win 28-17.
Alrighty. I will go 27-17 Jacksonville.
All right. Well, I want to thank everybody for being in the chat. I know it's kind of a downer. I wanted to be a little more active in the chat because at this point we're just kind of running out of things to say. I do want to mention that we will be taking a break next week. It is Thanksgiving. It's been quite the year, and I just want to come back a little more refreshed, have a little more things to talk about. Crandizer said Jackie and Colby will be and sign autographs. Yes, we could do a meet and greet. Message me on Twitter. I'll come up and say hello. Colby doesn't like to get out of his seat, but yeah, I'm always down to say hello to the folks. But yeah, like I was saying, we will be taking a break next week. In the spirit of Thanksgiving, we'll come back a little strong. Hopefully, talk about at least one win. Because after that, we will be playing Tampa Bay when we reconvene. But other than that, it has been another wonderful episode of the Bird and Goal podcast. My name is Jackie. You can find me on Twitter at JSanDiego. That is with 2 O's.
And my name is Colby. You can find me on Twitter at BrownC74, as well as giving the show a follow at Bird and Goal. Thanks, everybody.
Yep, we appreciate all you guys for chopping in the chat. We are